Ever been in an argument where no matter how logical you are, the other person just talks louder, cuts you off, and makes you feel powerless? Now imagine saying just one calm sentence, and suddenly, they go silent. No shouting, no insults, just pure intelligence. In this video, I'll share 5 Stoic comebacks so powerful they can instantly shut anyone down while making you look stronger and more composed. These responses don't just shield you, they also place you in a position of strength without losing your calm. And listen carefully, because number 3, if you apply it correctly, has the power to disarm even the most skilled manipulator. Stay until the very end, because you will want to practice each one of them, and once you do, you'll see how silence follows. We have all at some point felt that same frustration. You're saying something logical, necessary, and perfectly valid, but the other person simply refuses to hear it. Worse still, they appear to be winning the exchange, not because they're right, but because they shout louder, cut you off quicker, or attack more aggressively. In our culture, volume is often mistaken for strength, imposition for conviction, and fear for respect. But that is not true respect. It's nothing more than temporary domination. And real power isn't about imposing your will, but about expressing yourself with such control and clarity that the other person has no choice but to listen. Response 1. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. There are many moments when someone thinks that by raising their voice, they automatically gain authority. They shout, they interrupt, they impose themselves, and they expect you to meet them on the same ground. But the moment you accept that game, you've already lost. This phrase is your elegant way out of the noise without leaving the conversation behind. Imagine yourself in a meeting, a discussion at home, or even a casual exchange on the street. The other person lifts their tone, trying to dominate the entire atmosphere. But instead of matching their fire, you stay calm and say with composure, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. That single sentence not only halts their attack, it also sends a message with unmistakable clarity. You refuse to play on the battleground of emotional confrontation. You are standing firmly on the ground of mental dominance. In that moment, the person facing you realizes that the dynamic has shifted. You're not simply arguing anymore, you're leading. The Stoics always taught that self-control is not suppression, but true strength. Epictetus once said that he who cannot control his tongue will always remain a slave to his emotions. And that is exactly the kind of strength you display when you use this response. You don't need to shout because your reasoning is already strong enough. You don't need to impose yourself because your confidence speaks louder than volume ever could. This phrase silences not only the one who shouts, but it also opens the eyes of those who witness it. Because when you speak with serenity while standing in the storm, everyone can see where the real power lies. Response 2. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. When someone tries to bring you down with sarcasm, mockery, or contempt, the strongest temptation is to mirror their behavior and strike back in kind. But that's the very trap where most people lose. This response, however, is like holding up a spotless mirror. It doesn't answer with violence, and it doesn't defend out of desperation. It merely reflects what the other person is revealing about themselves. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. With those words, you drain the venom from their speech. Because you're not insulting them, you're not pleading for approval, and you're not playing into their game. Imagine someone throwing a cruel remark in your direction. Instead of retaliating, you keep your composure and calmly give this response. Suddenly, they hear themselves, and in that moment, they begin to feel the weight of their own words. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." And this phrase is a living reflection of that truth. You keep your peace, but you also force the other person to confront their own disrespect. And here lies a deeper lesson. When you don't react as they expect, you change the script. And when the script changes, the entire power dynamic shifts. This is a phrase for those who refuse to stoop down, who refuse to surrender, and who refuse to allow the behavior of others to dictate who they are. The Stoics understood this more than 2 millennia ago. Epictetus, born into slavery but later teaching wisdom to Rome's most powerful, taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That teaching carries immense depth because what ultimately defines your character and the respect you earn is not in what happens to you, but in how you choose to respond. In an argument, that translates into one clear truth. You don't need to shout to win. You need to respond with precision. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire without losing his composure, not because he was weak, but because he understood that whoever holds control over themselves holds control over the situation. His serenity became his strongest weapon, and his self-control his greatest power. Today, we live in a culture that rewards impulsive reactions, careless opinions, and destructive words. But the rare person who learns to answer with intelligence becomes unforgettable, someone others are drawn to listen to, even in disagreement. Seneca once warned, "To speak in anger is like shooting an arrow without aiming. One careless word can burn a bridge, close an opportunity, or strip away the respect you fought to build." That is why these responses aren't meant to humiliate anyone. They are designed to protect your dignity with elegance, to set clear boundaries without hostility, and to silence even your fiercest opponents. Because when you speak with confidence, calm, and clarity, you've already moved beyond arguing. You're leading. Response 3. Let's talk when we can do it respectfully. Not every exchange deserves to be called a conversation. Many are simply attacks disguised as dialogue. The other person interrupts, raises their tone, enforces their truth, and expects you to play along. But you are never obligated to join a dirty game. This phrase is not an escape, it's a declaration of principles. Let's talk when we can do it respectfully. Simple, direct, mature, and powerful. You are not retreating, you are raising the standard. Picture yourself in a discussion with someone who constantly cuts you off. Their tone is aggressive, their words sharp. Instead of fueling the tension, you pause, take a breath, and say calmly, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." In that instant, the entire focus shifts. The topic itself no longer matters. What matters now are the basic conditions necessary for any real dialogue to exist. This is a reflection of what Epictetus called self-mastery. He taught that while you cannot control what others do, you can absolutely control what you choose to accept. By using this phrase, you clearly state what you are willing to accept and what you are not. You don't need long explanations. You don't need to shout. You simply draw an emotional line that forces the other person to step back or stay silent. Because whoever cannot speak with respect loses the privilege of speaking with you. Response 4. I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. There are times when going further with dialogue is useless. The other person isn't listening, doesn't want to understand, and only wants to win, even if it means hurting you in the process. And this is exactly where this response becomes your shield. I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. Clear, firm, and deeply powerful. It doesn't ask for permission, it doesn't try to justify, it simply ends it. Imagine someone trying to provoke you over and over, their words dipped in poison. You feel your patience thinning. Instead of exploding, you pause, stay steady, and say with serenity, "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation." The effect is immediate. The toxic cycle is cut off at the root. Most importantly, you reclaim your control. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." And by choosing not to continue, you protect your energy, your dignity, and your focus. This is not about walking away in weakness. It's about valuing your peace more than the satisfaction of having the last word. Those who see you take this path realize something powerful. You are not avoiding conflict. You are rising above it. Closing that door at the right time is one of the strongest acts of will. Response 5. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Not all arguments happen with enemies. Sometimes they happen with friends, colleagues, or even family members who, with good intentions, push their worldview onto you. Without realizing it, they may step across your boundaries. And this is when you need a phrase that asserts your stance without disrespect. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. This doesn't provoke, but it does define. It's like saying, I hear you, I value you, but I also have my own judgment. Imagine someone close insisting on persuading you about a choice you don't want to make, a belief you don't accept, or a judgment you find unfair. Instead of getting dragged into endless debate or falling silent to avoid tension, you calmly say, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it." And what follows is striking. They are left with no grounds to argue further. You are not rejecting their perspective outright, you are simply standing firm in yours. Seneca captured it best: to be enslaved to the opinion of others is the worst kind of prison. This phrase is the key that unlocks that prison door. It's your elegant way of saying, I think for myself, and I don't need your approval to do so. Using this response consistently builds something rare: emotional independence. And once people recognize they cannot pressure you into submission, they begin to respect you more. Now you hold in your hands 5 responses that don't just protect you, but also strengthen you. 5 phrases that, when spoken with composure, clarity, and confidence, leave others in silence. Not because you've crushed them, but because you've risen above them. Because true respect is never forced through fear. It is earned through character. Let's recall them once more. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. Let's talk when we can do it respectfully. I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Don't underestimate the strength of these phrases. When you start practicing them and bringing them into your daily interactions, you will begin to notice one thing very clearly. People will listen to you differently, and they will move more carefully around you. Because you are no longer someone who is easily provoked or manipulated. You are someone with presence, with self-control, and with a commanding voice. What are your views on this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I will personally read all of your comments. And if you seriously want to level up in life, don't forget to show some love by hitting the like and subscribe button. Stay strong. Until next time.